Randy Spivey, CEO and founder of CPPS, the Center for Personal Protection and Safety. And I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes talking about what we're seeing just as an increase in violence continue across our country and actually around the world over the last couple months. In particular, this last week just seems extra bad. Shooting in a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, racially motivated, 10 people killed. The next day, a shooting at a flea market down in Houston, Texas, 2 people shot and killed. And then the very next day at a church in Southern California, another racially motivated attack resulting in 1 person being shot and killed. And the violence just seems to be increasing across the country. In fact, where I'm sitting here in Spokane, Washington, where our production team resides. The last 4 years, the statistics showed an increase in shootings in Spokane, Washington, which historically hasn't had that many, but it's increased over the last 4 years like 50% year over year. And in fact, the statistic I saw the other day, the number of shootings that have happened so far in 2022 equal the number that were all of 2021. And so we're just seeing gun violence and violence as a whole continue to increase. And part of what I wanted to share was one of the things that we know is that organizations are being held accountable for having programs in place to train their people on how to prevent this type of violence from happening, or at least how to respond if it does. And in fact, a couple of years ago, I was involved in a court case down in San Diego in which it was a workplace shooting, and when we were doing the depositions, the attorneys, they basically had 2 primary questions. Was this a foreseeable risk, and was it preventable? And again, this is 10 years ago, and they were using the asis guideline on workplace violence prevention as a standard to ask questions from. And basically, the answer to both those questions, was it foreseeable? Yeah, there were a lot of warning signs, but they had no program in place. And number 2, was it preventable? And you never know for sure, but the reality is they had 30 days of just red flag, behavior, red flag, and then after about 30 days, the individual became violent and shot and killed 2 of his coworkers. So the standard that they were using was the term, was it more likely than not that this could have been prevented? And when we looked at all the circumstances of the case, we said, yeah, it was foreseeable and it was preventable in our opinion. And the outcome of that was a really, fairly high level payout on behalf of the organization to the individual, one of the individual's families. And so, and that was 10 years ago. So now, if you fast forward, you see not only has the workplace shootings and societal shootings not gone away, but it's increasing dramatically. I think it's a fair statement to make that if a company or an organization has an incident like what we've seen happen more and more in the last few weeks, that and they don't have a program in place, that I think there would be significant legal liability in the aftermath. And of course, that's one reason to put these programs into place, prevention and response programs. The other one is we just want to take care of our people. And so one of the things that we found is that the more organizations are approaching this issue and taking it seriously in a systematic way, not just, okay, let's do active shooter training, but do we have a solid policy and procedures for our workplace violence prevention program? Do we have protocols in place for our threat assessment team and management team? Do we have a solid reporting procedures? That if somebody sees a red flag that they can report it to. That was one of the things that happened in the San Diego case, is they had all kinds of red flags, but nobody had any idea what to do about it or who to report it to. And so one of the keys there is to understand if it is a foreseeable risk. In 2007, when we put out our video called Shots Fired, which was the first guidance on active shooter survival and what to do in that kind of a situation, it wasn't as prominent. And in fact, a lot of times people had a hard time convincing their legal department or their HR department that we really need to have a comprehensive program in place. But not so much anymore. I think it's not only becoming expected, but it is becoming much needed. And in fact, you're starting to see legislation being picked up in the Senate. The House passed legislation mandating healthcare workplace violence prevention programs a couple of years ago, and now the Senate just picked it up just a couple of days ago. So I think you're going to see that happen more and more. I think you're going to see legislation that is going to mandate this. I think you're going to see increased litigation, that if an incident happens and a company or an organization doesn't have a program in place, that it's going to become very vulnerable from that side, from a liability side. And number three, the expectation. In fact, one of the things that I'm seeing happen more and more in large companies is the board of directors coming to the CEO and saying, what are we doing to protect our employees? They're watching the news, they keep seeing these incidents happen, and so they are now going to the C-suite and saying, hey, what are you doing to keep our people safe? And then invariably they come down to the security department or the HR department and say, how do we set up a program? And I just want to highlight one other change that I've seen happen in the last couple months. And I would say we've seen about a 500% increase in organizations showing interest in how to set up a holistic violence prevention and response program, from policy to awareness training to manager training to threat assessment team training to training for the C-suite and board of directors, the whole package. And then I've seen ever since we've been in business for the last 20 years. And I think it's because of the increase in these shootings and people coming back to work. So if you have interest in learning how to do that, get a hold of us at info@cpps.com, and we'd be happy to share more about what is our Safe Workplace Certification and why organizations in an accelerated way are moving towards seeing the value of that and wanting to implement that as we see violence continuing to increase across the country. Thank you very much. Stay safe.